Over the past 12 hours, several significant developments have unfolded in the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict. The United States has announced a comprehensive $425 million military aid package, including the provision of Stryker armored vehicles, a move poised to empower Ukraine for possible counteroffensive actions. Amid intensifying clashes, Russian forces continue to press forward in key areas, with new positions being secured along the southern Donetsk and Kupiansk fronts. We dive into these events, examining the aid's implications and latest frontline reports. The United States has committed a new military package valued at $425 million to support Ukraine's defense efforts. This extensive aid allocation includes a substantial supply of critical resources: 155mm artillery shells, various missiles, Javelin anti-tank systems, small arms, ammunition, and, most notably, 211 Stryker armored personnel carriers. The large number of Stryker vehicles has strategic significance, as this fleet is sufficient to support a concentrated counterattack or launch a contained offensive operation. Observers suggest this package's swift delivery means that these units may already be positioned in Ukraine or en route, preparing Ukrainian forces for immediate deployment along the front lines. Such timely aid is likely to facilitate upcoming Ukrainian operations aimed at maintaining or regaining critical ground ahead of the U.S. elections, an event that places pressure on the Biden administration to exhibit clear foreign policy achievements. Analysts note that the presence of Strykers will likely enable Ukrainian forces to conduct rapid maneuvers and sustain counterattacks in targeted regions, notably where recent Russian gains have positioned Ukrainian defenders at a disadvantage. The anticipated counterattacks, informed by Western intelligence and logistics, could serve both strategic and symbolic purposes, projecting strength while offering a morale boost to Ukraine and its allies. According to recent intelligence from both Ukrainian and international observers, Russia has made concerted efforts to strengthen positions along several fronts. Russian advances have been documented in the southern Donetsk region, where pro-Russian sources report that forces have taken control of the settlements of Novokrainka and Shakhtarska. The Russian military appears to be consolidating these gains, advancing further towards Maksimivka, with reconnaissance teams probing Ukrainian defenses. Further efforts are reportedly underway in the northern Kupiansk region, where Russian units have maneuvered to secure vital transportation routes and tree lines to reinforce their positions. Such efforts suggest that Russian forces aim to restrict Ukrainian mobility, potentially as a prelude to additional offensives in the area. In another critical area, South Donetsk, Russian units have established new positions along the banks of the Sukhalala River, which could serve as a strategic pivot point for future actions. Observers note that Russian forces are engaged in an apparent envelopment maneuver, targeting Ukrainian defenses from multiple directions. The ongoing buildup and repositioning of Russian units have shifted control of several fortified tree lines, increasing pressure on Ukrainian defensive posts and creating a precarious situation for Ukrainian units stationed nearby. Ukrainian forces face substantial challenges in the Donbas region, where multiple reports confirm intensified clashes in northern Donetsk. The West's response, particularly in the form of these Stryker vehicles, appears aimed at offsetting this pressure, possibly allowing Ukraine to counter Russian advances before the onset of winter further complicates operations. Analysts also highlight the potential for these newly supplied armored carriers to be deployed in smaller targeted counterattacks along strategic points, such as in the Kurakhove or Kupiansk sectors, where Ukrainian command may see opportunities to reclaim valuable ground. The renewed military support from the United States signals a deliberate reinforcement of Ukraine's ability to respond effectively in this protracted conflict. The timing aligns with an approaching deadline for the Biden administration to exhibit foreign policy achievements in advance of the U.S. elections, where military and diplomatic victories abroad could enhance political capital at home. The delivery of such a large quantity of armored vehicles, ammunition, and advanced weaponry underscores a commitment by Washington and NATO allies to maintain Ukraine's ability to mount an effective defense and to sustain potential offensives during this critical period. For Russia, recent frontline advances demonstrate an enduring capacity to press the initiative on key fronts, likely aiming to secure strategic positions before weather constraints limit large-scale operations. The ongoing buildup in areas such as southern Donetsk and along the Kupiansk axis indicates Russian attempts to reinforce vulnerable sections of their defense and disrupt Ukrainian supply lines. Russian command appears to be leveraging recent gains to create logistical choke points, thereby attempting to limit Ukraine's ability to maneuver reinforcements into contested areas. Meanwhile, continued Russian advances are gradually closing in on the Ukrainian defenses around the Vovcha River and northern Vovchansk, where current lines suggest that Russian forces may be positioning themselves to secure these sectors and press toward nearby urban centers. U.S. and NATO analysts have highlighted that the deployment of new Stryker units could significantly shift the tactical landscape. Capable of rapid mobilization across rugged terrain, these carriers may allow Ukrainian forces to reclaim essential ground while reinforcing existing defensive positions. This scenario could compel Russia to intensify its use of aerial and artillery assets, heightening the potential for escalation as both sides seek to assert control. As winter nears, both Russian and Ukrainian forces are likely to consolidate gains and prepare for intensified clashes along well-entrenched positions. The addition of Western resources may enable Ukraine to adopt a flexible approach, leveraging the mobility provided by the new armored vehicles. For Ukraine, such flexibility is critical, as reclaiming or stabilizing the front lines could impact future supply routes and defensive fortifications, essential to withstanding Russia's anticipated winter offensives. The U.S.'s latest military aid package to Ukraine represents a timely reinforcement of Ukraine's combat capability, adding momentum to anticipated counteroffensive operations. The recent advances by Russian forces, particularly in Donbas and Kupiansk, point to a calculated approach to secure strategic locations, thereby intensifying the stakes for Ukrainian forces. With U.S. elections approaching, Washington's support underscores a strategic push for Ukrainian gains on the ground. The coming days and weeks may prove decisive as new equipment is deployed, potentially shaping the conflict's dynamics before winter takes hold. As Ukraine positions its forces for tactical responses, both sides prepare for an intense period ahead, marked by shifting front lines and a contest for control over critical regions. November 2, 2024. The situation on the Donbas front continues to change, with reports of active operations by Russian troops in a number of areas, including Ugledar, Kurakhove, and Kupiansk. Fighting is intensifying in several key areas, such as Maximovka and Kurakhove, as well as in the border areas of the Kharkiv and Belgorod regions. In the Ugledar area, the Russian armed forces, RF armed forces, have cleared the area along the road between the settlements of Novukrenka and Bogayavlenka. Clearing is underway in the areas of Yasnaya Polyana, Novukrenka, and Bogayavlenka, which creates conditions for an offensive on Maximovka. According to incoming reports, attacks on Maximovka have already begun. The Russian army is also advancing toward the settlement of Trudovoye, located north of Bogayavlenka. Changes are noted in the Kurakhove area. Here, units of the Russian group YUG continue their offensive on the western part of Kurakhove. According to Russian sources, Ilyinka and Stepanovka, located north of Kurakhove, have been taken under control. However, The Ukrainian side reports that the defense remains steadfast and fighting continues, albeit with tactical successes of Russian troops. In the Lyman direction, Russian troops have consolidated their positions on the approaches to Ternoy and are conducting intensive artillery and airstrikes. Fierce fighting continues, with Russian troops encountering fragmented but stubborn defense of the armed forces of Ukraine, AFU, in this area. In the Kupiansk direction, positional battles are also underway. In Kurakhove, the Russian armed forces repelled counterattacks by the AFU, while attacks by Russian troops continue in Kolesnikovka and Zagryzovo. Offensive actions have intensified in Petropavlovka, where the AFU is launching counterattacks. And that's it. As a reminder, we condemn any violence in the world. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel, like it. Join my Patreon, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.